Let's start with this. TalkTV exclusively revealing today that the Labour peer leading the charge against the government's Rwanda Bill on human rights grounds has, via the law firm he manages, taken payments of hundreds of thousands of pounds from a government with a checkered record on that very subject. The register of interest showing that Lord Peter Goldsmith was paid £381,000 by Azerbaijan last year for legal advice. Human rights groups accuse Azerbaijan authorities of arbitrary arrests, indefinite detention, torture, forced disappearances and even war crimes. And with a part of Rishi Sunak's Rwanda plan facing its first defeat in the Lords last night, this has reignited a political debate about whether our two-house system for legislation needs some reforming. Let's remind ourselves, just 7% of the public thinks the current Lords system is a good idea. And is it any wonder after decades of scandal like the one we just mentioned? You might remember this. Cash for honours absolutely hammered the Blair government, Labour having to hand back cash amid a police investigation into whether loans were being made in exchange for peerages. Expensive scandals as well have repeatedly raised their head, one baroness having to repay £125,000 of housing expenses. Some 91 hereditary peers still sit in the Lords. Every one of them is male, qualified by nothing more than their birth. Political influence in appointments is also rife. Boris Johnson famously appointing his 30-year-old ex-advisor Charlotte Owen recently, our youngest peer, while the Michelle Mone PPE scandal has forced back into the light. It's raised further questions over who is being handed the right to a lifetime in the Lords and what they might use it for. Not to mention, of course, Liz Truss's appointment list for her friends after just 44 days in office. Now, Prime Minister Sunak has been trading on all of this, despite the Lords being stuffed full of Conservative peers, in fact, overwhelmingly so. PM Sunak has been arguing it would not be right for the Lords to block his Rwanda plan.
The treaty with Rwanda is signed and the legislation which deems Rwanda a safe country has been passed unamended in our elected chamber. There is now only one question. Will the opposition in the appointed House of Lords try and frustrate the will of the people as expressed by the elected House?
A bit mildly menacing. Also arguing for a massive change about how our parliament works and how laws get passed in this country. Let's remember that the public has not voted for the Rwanda plan. It wasn't in any manifesto. There's no big popular pledge behind it. So the Lords are the main thing standing in Sunak's way. And that, among other reasons mentioned before, is why some on the right are now calling the Lords system into doubt. Funnily enough, though, another person who might agree with the Prime Minister is the man on the left who stands opposite him every week.
We need a much bigger change than this. The House of Lords has got to be reformed. We cannot tolerate anymore an unelected second chamber. We need an elected chamber of the nations and the regions.
Labour's leader may have ditched most of his campaign pledges, but he has kept this one, even if he's a little bit vague about how he'd achieve it. So is it time for something new? What would that look like?